Welcome to our new home and our new lifestyle in rural Scotland. On this channel you can join us on our journey towards the life we've always dreamed of. After years of moving around, living in 8 different towns and cities across the UK and Sweden, and more homes and rentals than we can count, we finally have the chance to try and work towards the more sustainable rural life we've always dreamed of, full of plants, animals, food forests, making, crafting and basic self-sufficiency. Earlier this year we were lucky enough to buy a 0.2 acre piece of land with a cottage and a few outhouses on it. It's not much space for self-sufficient living, but it's more than we could ever have hoped to call home in the UK, where land is so expensive. So that's what we're hoping to try and do here, a tiny backyard homestead. It's going to be a challenge, but we're really looking forward to it. So this video is a recap of our first 6 months at the property, which includes the time that it took to buy the property and then the 3 months that we've actually been living here. For record, it's currently the end of September 2024. So let's go back to the beginning. We first sold the property back in March 2024. And we instantly saw a property which we really liked the look of. It was in a rural setting, it wasn't a huge amount of land, but we could see some potential for some of the things that we wanted to achieve. We organised a viewing as soon as we could, and we just fell in love with the space. It's a gorgeous little area, loads and loads of potential. The whole place was looking a little bit tired, like it hadn't really been loved or cared for quite a long time, but that didn't really put us off, so we organised ourselves and put in an offer. The seller had been pushing back over offers and was really looking for a no-chain purchase, which would mean that we'd have to take out a second mortgage, which we organised ourselves to do, but that kind of put us out on a financial limb. All that said, we had actually secured ourselves the property that we wanted, the house of our dreams, the place where we were going to start all of these ideas and plans that we had. And we can say that we finally got the keys in July. When we eventually moved in, the first thing that hit us was the bird song. It was just so beautiful. It felt like we'd arrived finally. I have to say that 2 of our family were delighted by the number of birds in the area, and that is Bramble and Suki, who have essentially been glued to the windows watching the activity all summer. They have not been allowed out into the area yet. We're kind of working up to that. We still need to get them vaccinated and various things, but they have been absolutely loving the show that's happening just outside the great big window for them. When the shock had finally worn off, we decided to start exploring the house a little bit more. We found that we actually had quite a few squatters in the property. Some 2-legged, some 6-legged, some 8-legged, and who knows what else. There was a huge amount of cleaning to do. There was a huge number of dead wood lice or slaters in Scotland, like a slater graveyard or something. Once the cleaning was underway, we obviously needed to get clean ourselves, so we tested one of the showers, which basically exploded in our hands and fell into the bath, which gave us one of our very first jobs that needed to be addressed, because when we tried the other shower, we found this under the floor, which was not exactly a delightful surprise, but it was certainly a surprise. Anyway, enough about that. Back to the bathroom. We got a replacement shower second hand off our local Gumtree and managed to make it fit into the space, and we put up a shower curtain at the same time, which definitely jollied up the space and made it feel a little bit more homely. Over to Stina for a bit about the green stuff.
For me, a key feature of our sustainable lifestyle was always going to be the compost bin. I was really keen to get something established as fast as we possibly could after moving in, partly so that we'd have a way to dispose of weeds and kitchen scraps, but also knowing that it will potentially take months for that waste to break down to a point that I can use it to begin establishing a garden here. The garden or food forest will be my pet project. Luckily, the cottage had an area of decking that had really seen better days and was so rotten in places that it was clear someone had put their foot through it at some point. We made it a priority to remove this decking for our own safety, but then we were also able to salvage some of the better wood towards building my compost bins. These bins won't last more than a few years at most, but they seem the perfect way to squeeze one last use out of what would once have been some pretty solid timber. We'll see how it goes. As for where we're putting the compost bins, one of the outhouses was a children's Wendy house with an uncomfortably small door for adults, a rotten floor under the lino, and an active wasp's nest. We decided it was a priority for removal as we had no use for it, and that created a perfect area that we now call Compost Corner. Eventually we want 3 compost bins in a row, and just hoping we have enough viable decking wood left to do that. I've already filled the first bin with undergrowth from all over the site, and now I'm on to the second one. At some point we'll do a video of us building the third bin.
So during July we seemed to do quite a lot of things, but there's a whole range of other things that we did as well. Like we removed the fence gates from the front of the drive. We also plotted out the garden for the beds and the kind of style of garden that we'd like. But anyway, I feel that that is enough for July. August was an eventful month for us for several reasons, and we didn't get a huge amount done around the house or on the land. I'd actually been given notice that I was to be made redundant, along with everyone at my workplace, so it wasn't just me. And then immediately after finishing the job, I caught COVID, which took a solid 2 weeks to clear. The other thing that prevented things being done in August was the amount of rain. It was absolutely tipping it down here in Scotland. During August, we apparently had nearly 240% of our average monthly rainfall for the time of year, and this region is already one of the wettest parts of the UK. It was relentless both day and night, and it seemed like as soon as one storm had calmed and left, the next one rolled in. It felt like it took all the energy out of the world, and we just couldn't get anything done. One of the things that the rain actually showed us was the amount of water that sits in certain areas on our site, and that kind of showed to us that some of our drains were blocked, and we found that one of the drains is actually completely full of silt and the occasional dead mouse, but mostly silt. And that's going to be quite a job for us to clear, because that is one of the key areas where the water builds up when it rains, and we need to have a look at that. One thing that we did manage to achieve in August was we got to meet some of our neighbours. There is a wide diversity of neighbours around this area, again, 2-legged, 4-legged, but we get to see all sorts of amazing wildlife through our windows, in the local area, walking up our drive sometimes, and it's just wonderful to see the biodiversity, and we're hoping to bring a little bit more of that back into this area right in the middle of this little village. With the cold starting to draw in, we decided to have a think about the local bird life, and we bought some fat bowls quite locally. We'll have a look at making some of those ourselves in the future, but it's not the kind of thing that we really want to supplement the birds' life with. We just want to have a little bit of extra food there for them. So Stina went ahead and purchased a couple of brackets, organised a pole to hang the brackets from, and gave the kittens, Suki and Bramble, a fantastic view of birds feeding all day long. And the bird feeder is definitely a popular piece for the kittens as much as it is for the birds. Having only moved in July, there wasn't much opportunity to actually grow any veg this year, or plant any seeds, or try and get ahead on these things, but we did put in a raised bed and sowed some plants in there, which I'm going to say is Brassica, but Stina might correct me.
We've moved to Bramble Cottage from our previous home, where we had a small garden in which I was already attempting to establish something of a food forest. though that site was much smaller and limiting for various reasons. There's so much more potential at this new site, but obviously it's sad to leave a semi-established garden behind and to have to start again almost from scratch. For this reason, I was keen to do some seasonal planting and get some sort of cycle of food productivity going as soon as I could, just to know that when we come into spring next year, there's already going to be something to look forward to. Towards this, I had some special Swedish Mandelpotatis seed potatoes that I'd been keeping in a box all spring and summer due to our move, and I hoped I might still be able to salvage them. They were looking really rough with spindly shoots and roots all over as they hadn't had any light or moisture. I quickly planted these in a potato bucket when we arrived at Bramble Cottage, and amazingly, they did really well. The plants flourished in all of our August rain, although in September the harvest was understandably not so great, lots of tiny new tubers, but hopefully it's enough to store and to try again properly next year. As Cameron said, I also put in one semi-permanent pallet collar bed for veggies. And here I planted 3 winter hardy brassicas that I just happened to have leftover seed for: kale, mustard leaves and tatsoi, which is closely related to bok choy. 2 of these are coming up nicely now, but I'm not so sure about the kale. I might need to try sowing something else in its place. Finally, we still have our last house up for sale on the other side of Scotland, so we're making regular trips there to cut the lawn, and each time I try to lift or take cuttings from a few of my old plants to bring back with me. It means I'm planting up the garden here in a really piecemeal way, and I'm battling rabbit attacks as I go, but it feels good to be getting some of the plants I already have settled in and ready for a fresh start next spring. I also planted 3 varieties of early, mid and late flowering daffodils in various places across the site, including outside our property under the hedge. Hopefully a nice splash of colour for us and our new neighbours next year.
So that brings us pretty much up to date. We still have a lot of projects we want to work on in the very near future, such as the stove project to refurbish that. We've got the shower room project, just because you've seen some pictures of that, and that definitely needs doing. We've got the smart TRV project, which is actually a smart home heating system. We want to reduce our usage of oil massively. And we've got some compost bins still to build. We've got one more compost bin to put in, so we can show you how we did that. So why don't you come and join us, hit the subscribe button, and hopefully we'll keep you up to date with everything that's going on. Thank you.